Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Jane Francisco, Editor-in-Chief of Good Housekeeping and Editorial Director of the Hearst Lifestyle Group. I'm thrilled to be here with Maggie Q, who many of you know from her TV and film roles in Nikita, Designated Survivor, Mission Impossible 3, Live Free or Die, and I understand a new film has just come out at the beginning of the month, The Death of Me, which looks terrifying, but but also fun. What you might not know about Maggie is that she's passionate and an active environmentalist, an animal rights activist, and an earth warrior. And we'll dive a little deeper into that later. And a crusader for healthier oceans. This love for the planet that she's passionate about has led her to create an activewear company called Qeep Up, which is #1 made in the United States, but it's also made of 100% recycled materials from the ocean. So welcome, Maggie.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Can you tell us, first of all, where are we? Where are you?
I'm actually in the Qeep Up offices, which are at the top of my home.
And
which I think
where is that?
These days.
What part of the world? Sorry?
Oh, I'm in Los Angeles.
Oh, great. Okay. And have you been there for the last 6 months, give or take, or have you been able to travel a bit?
You know, I was actually on a film in Romania when COVID hit Europe badly. And so it was like Escape from Europe. It was like we were making a new movie. So sort of every country I left locked down the day that I left. So I got back to Los Angeles when lockdown had already begun. But I had kind of already been experiencing the COVID in Europe. And so I've been here since April.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, I think all of us are thinking about that a lot, thinking about when we will be in different places, perhaps, etc. But let's talk about your sort of journey to where you're at now in the bigger picture. And I feel like it sort of started in your childhood. Can you tell us a little bit about where you grew up and what your childhood was like, how that impacted your worldview, maybe?
Okay, well, I was born and raised in Hawaii. And so, you know, I think that if you meet anyone from an island, they're always going to have a very protective way about them when it comes to nature, the environment, our oceans especially. I just think growing up around that and having the oceans be a part of my daily life was impactful because it gave me a profound respect for this world that we really know very little about, but that is entirely responsible for life on Earth. We don't live without healthy oceans. We don't breathe without healthy oceans. You know, half the medicines that don't come from the Amazon come from the oceans. Just everything that we do to sustain life comes from this, part of the world, part of our planet that covers, about 75% of Earth. So if you think about it being as big a mass as it is and not caring for it, it doesn't make any sense, actually. So I guess my grounding, was growing up on an island and being near the oceans, knowing the oceans, loving the oceans, and then growing up and taking a more bird's eye view global approach to what it means for them to be healthy and what our part is in that.
So I have heard you talk about an incident where you sort of started to look at yourself and your life in a different way, where you kind of started to look at consumption in a new light. Can you share that sort of experience?
Yeah, I mean, it was funny, actually. For me, it goes way back 2008 when the crash happened. I was raising money for nonprofits and doing different things, in my spare time. And I remember that being an entirely devastating. I've never seen anything so devastating in my life. I mean, I saw grassroots organizations dry up, people who were doing really great work for this planet, for kids, for women, for rights, for everything you can think of was affected negatively, obviously. And so at the time, I remember thinking how powerless we were in the space because, donations dried up. And it was devastating. And so I remember thinking at the time when I was 19, that my dream was to create not just a sustainable company, obviously, but a sustainable initiative where, I was able to donate to nonprofit and the nonprofits that I've worked and fought with for many years on a consistent basis, and no matter what was happening in the economy, that it wasn't going to just devastate them the minute that, our markets crashed. So I always wanted to have a business where a portion of what I was doing was going to the very groups that are doing the work for keeping our oceans, clean and healthy and protecting endangered marine mammals. And so that was my dream back then. And so that's kind of how it all kind of came to be.
So I think social entrepreneurialism has really sort of blossomed since then. So you sort of had a concept, an idea that was probably a little before its time, in terms of thinking about business and the way it can support something bigger. At Good Housekeeping, we often talk about the little things that we can do, and if all of us can make small changes, that could make a huge difference. And I'm wondering if you could share some of the small things we might all think about doing that could make a difference.
Yeah, I mean, any effort is good, in my opinion. I think that people get overwhelmed because there's a guilt factor or there's a pressure factor when it comes to how much you do. And the reality is it's not about how much you do. There are people in the world who are going to do more. There are people in the world that are going to do less, but collectively it matters so much. And so, I mean, obviously this is COVID. So, I mean, it's a little out the window to obviously, go to, grocery stores and bring your own bags and obviously have your own bottles. All of that matters. Meatless Mondays, 1 day a week. A lot of people don't know that one of the biggest polluters of our planet is factory farming, and one of the big killers of our reefs is actually waste from animals.
And so, I mean, so we can all do a little something, and you mentioned something like Meatless Mondays, but you've talked about really committing yourself to plant-based eating. And can you tell us a bit about that? Are you full-on vegan? How do you manage that in your life?
For me, I really like plant-based, and I'm glad you're using that because I think it's a little less threatening than a lot of the words that are out there that have been, I don't know, taken on a negative connotation, even though they're not negative in their approach or what they do for the planet. But people get I think that people feel judged. Nobody wants to feel judged. So what I want to encourage people to do is I want to encourage them to include more vegetables and just bring your meat consumption down. If you can bring it down, if you think about the collective, we are doing so much for the planet. If you talk about 2,500 gallons of water being used for 1 pound of meat. If you're talking about, on the opposite side, to grow anything, wheat, rice, grain, corn, vegetables, 250 gallons of water for a pound of those. It's so starkly different, and it's hugely important. I mean, I've sometimes drive in my car and they talk about taking shorter showers and how that matters. And yeah, that matters. But if you don't have a burger, you're saving 2,000 gallons of water. So you really have to put it into perspective. There's so many little things. I mean, have a veggie burger, have a Beyond Burger, whatever you want to do. But that one choice is going to save our planet an immense amount of resources.
That's great. I mean, so you have animals. You've talked about loving animals. How do you think that animal rights fits in with the climate change conversation?
Well, I think respect.
Maybe introduce an animal at this moment.
Oh, okay.
No.
Like.
No, I'm just teasing. Just knowing that you're there with some. Hi.
I'm here with 5. 5 of these. This is the youngest.
Oh, so adorable.
So as far as rights goes, I mean, I'm obviously, there's so many reasons why I eat the way I do. One of them is compassion for animals, but there's a humanitarian, social, environmental, you name it, everything is tied to this issue. So for me, having a respect for life, I don't have a problem with cows living outside and, living the way that they live. I mean, I have no problem with that. Factory farming has been devastating to our environment, entirely devastating. And for me, I think if you have a respect for the creature, you're not going to overbreed them. If you have a respect for the life, you're not going to take it so that you can have that meal 5 times a day, 4 times a day. you're going to have more of a respect for what it is you're putting into your body and the resources that that takes. So it does tie in animal rights. It really does. For me, it does, because I think fundamentally there's no difference between the animals that live in our homes and the animals that were put here for their own purpose.
Fair. I guess as we go through a summit like this and we try to talk about all of the different sort of components and areas that are important when we think about what makes life sustainable or how we can make life more sustainable, sometimes it is that overwhelming feeling, and appreciating the idea that if we all do a little bit, then that can make a big difference. And obviously doing a little bit sometimes makes you feel like you want to do more, and that's always great.
Always nice. That's so true.
Yeah. So speaking about doing more, you talked about having this inspiration about creating a company that could give back, but also could do good in and of itself. And I see that you have a Qeep Up hat on.
Yes.
Very cute.
But number one is because I didn't want to do my hair.
Fair enough. I feel like these days, hair is one of the biggest sort of challenges from a day-to-day perspective. Yeah. But you've kind of thrown something out there that seems like a bit of a challenge. Keep up a little bit, maybe throwing out the gauntlet a bit with our health, fitness, caring for the oceans and the planet. Was that part of the intent? And like, how did you get it going? Like, how complicated is it to get something like that going?
So complicated, number one. But thanks for, no one's actually ever asked me that or gotten, had that insight, For me, Qeep Up was exactly that. It was exactly what I was trying to do all the time. And I think what I tried to do in my life every minute of every day. It's like, you're keeping up with your work, you're keeping up with your kids, you're keeping up with your friends, you're keeping up with your husband or wife or lover, whatever it is you're doing, you're keeping up with whether you have nonprofits, your diet, exercise. Especially for women, because we take on more than men do. We just do. I think that we multitask better, and we're just able to. I just think we're able to handle more. I think any woman will will know and appreciate that. But I felt like keeping up was a positive thing. I want to keep up. I want to be a person who's like on top of everything it is that I love and everything that it is I want to accomplish and do. And so, yes, I created the company as a challenge, not only to like how we want to live, but also to myself. 10 years ago when I started researching sustainable fabrics, although it was happening, it was in early stages, and the quality it wasn't there. And so when I decided that I was going to jump in and really make the move to create this company, I wanted to create a company that was the equivalent to what it was that was out there on the market that women liked and women wore or people wore, and that they weren't making a sacrifice to purchase from my company because, well, the quality was less, but she's a do-gooder, so let's just like support her. I don't want anyone to know the difference. I want people to buy it because they want to buy it. And if they feel like it makes them feel better, or they feel like they're contributing to the greater good, fantastic. But starting a company like this is really hard because I think the integrity that I wanted to maintain, sustain, and build on is not typical in business. Cutting corners, saving money, doing all the things that you do when you start a business are very normal, and no criticism. But for me, I spent the money, I did the R&D, I created a fabric that is there's nothing else out there like it. That's 100% recycled, that pulled from the eastern seaboard of the United States. It's milled in North Carolina. It's cut and sewn in Los Angeles. I wanted a product for the U.S. that was made in the U.S., where we were using our own trash to create a commodity that we needed every day, especially women. And I wanted it to be contained within this country, and I want to take that model to other countries so that my eco footprint as well is much lower than any other company who's shipping all across the world.
Great. Okay, so you mentioned collecting and using ocean plastic. So how is that done? Is that something that people are already doing and you're able to tap into that? Is that something you had to start kind of building infrastructure for?
I wish I owned the research and the technology. But no, there's a company, funnily enough, it was a single man who had a business in the 70s, and he would go to door knocking on people's door. He was talking about sustainability in the 70s and saying, we really have to reduce and reuse and recycle. And I want to create a technology where, we can make fibers out of, trash and other things, and create products, so that we're not filling landfills. And people literally laughed in his face and slammed the door on him, because it was the 70s and nobody ever thought that we were going to run into this trash problem. Nobody thought that our oceans were going to be polluted within an inch of their life, and that endangered marine mammals were going to be swallowing plastic at a level where they're just dying off. Nobody had their eyes on that. So some people just have the foresight. So this company built for many years. It's based in North Carolina. They own the technology where they melt bottles and plastics into flakes, and those flakes are spun into yarn.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is actually very cool. I feel like I should also make sure everyone knows, because I've said Qeep Up, but I haven't told anyone how to spell it in case you don't know. It's Qeep.
Yes.
UP. In case people are looking for it, obviously the Q on your hat is a Q to that. So I mentioned Earth Warriors when I was introducing you, and can you elaborate on that? Who are these Earth Warriors? Tell us more. What is the mandate?
Well, first of all, I first have to shout out to my team, because I have an entirely female company of Earth Warriors and women who have made great sacrifices to be by my side and build this company, for sure. Taking less pay, taking more responsibility on, launching during COVID. I mean, it's been so entirely challenging, but we all know that our mandate is bigger than us. So our sort of hashtag, our website is Qeep Up Nation. And one of the reasons why we didn't just go with Qeep Up, and we wanted to be inclusive of everyone who cared enough to purchase this way and live this way, was because we really want, we want an army of people out there in the world who are conscious consumers, but who are people who are asking questions. Like, no one's going to be as hardcore as I am. I mean, I'm in the grocery store. It takes me 2 hours to shop in a grocery store, because every single thing that I buy, I pick up and then I look at the back and I'm reading everything that's in it, where it's made and all that. We don't want you to have to be as crazy as I am and take 2 hours in the grocery store, but we do want you to know who you're purchasing from, the level of integrity that people have who actually run the companies. I know every factory that we work with. I've walked the floors. I talk to everyone. I know that our workers are insured. I know that they have paid holidays. I know that the factories are ventilated. Every single thing about how our product is produced, I know from the ground up. Nobody can come to me and say, oh, well, you say you're sustainable, but what about this? We don't even have hang tags on our clothing. Everything's printed on it. All of our bags that it comes in are 100% compostable, so they disappear in a landfill in 2 years. So there's nothing that we're producing that's creating more waste, and that's really, really hard to do. It's expensive, it's hard, and as a startup, it's vulnerable. You're putting yourself out there. So the reason why we enlist people in the public who care enough is we want to create individual warriors that are out there in the world that are saying, hey, listen, like, I like this company, but if you're not going to have this level of integrity in the way that you source, produce, manufacture, distribute, I'm not supporting you. And the great thing is that we have a Gen Z and a millennial population who does really, really care. And when I speak to them and I look at the way that they purchase and how educated they are, I'm really inspired by people half my age, because they're smarter, they're more motivated, and they care more than I think I ever did at their age.
Okay, well, we have just scratched the surface, it feels like, but we are running out of time. So, okay, a couple of quick things. One, what's next in your opinion? And two, very quickly, will you tell us what's on your arm, your tattoos? What did I say? What's the significance?
I have so many.
Sorry. Just the ones I'm seeing, but.
Well, my arms. We'll just go with my arms.
Okay.
This is my best friend's name, who I lost about now. It's 14 years.
Wow.
To cancer. My number one dog, that's his name, who I lost. This is my arm, my memorial arm.
Right.
And then I have a cross on this arm, and I have it says "Do no harm."
Ah, that feels like that is an interesting way to end. But what's next?
What's next? Oh, wow. Okay. So we're building this company out. We are, our eyes are on the world. We want to go into markets with massive populations, much bigger than the United States, and be able to start that education on what sustainability looks like in their countries, and go in from a Western perspective and say, hey, we only know what we know. What are you doing? Let's work together to make it better for our environment. Because as you know, these countries with huge populations, they make the most impact in the world when they make decisions that matter.
Okay, so do no harm and see if we can make a greater impact. Maggie, thank you so much for being with us today and for sharing your journey, your experience, or at least a very small part of it, and introducing us to one of your little ones. And thanks to everyone for being with us today. It's been so incredible digging in on this and having everyone share their insights and experiences and advice and tips as we move forward.